So the previous session we saw file handling, right? So what we could do with different files, how can we read, write, and what are the different operations that we can perform on a file. Now in this session, we will be looking at packages. And first of all, I'll start by telling you what do you mean by packages. So in Python, till now, you have probably seen so many functions in Python, like even including for loops and different things that you can do with Python, strings, lists, tuples. There are a lot of inbuilt functions in Python, but Python has such a lot of functionalities that it doesn't really make sense to, for example, Python can be used for web development or game development or even scientific programming, which is what we are currently looking at. So you have so many different functionalities of Python that it doesn't really make sense for the developers to, put all those functions into the base into the base, like in as an inbuilt function. So because it will just consume a lot of memory and space. So what you have instead is different packages for different functionalities. Like we saw in the file handling session, I used a package called OS, that is operating system. So that particular package deals with different functions like getting the current working directory or changing the changing the directory, or removing files, renaming files, and so many things that we saw. So that particular package is used for all those functionalities. So package in Python really implies any function or any, so it contains a lot of modules, or it contains a lot of files that have a lot of functions for a particular functionality. Now, for example, today we'll be looking at different packages like the math package or the CMath package, the NumPy package, matplotlib, pandas, and datetime. Now, in the so basically you'll hear different people calling packages, you'll have different people calling modules or libraries and stuff. So all of them, what you just need to know is basically packages can contain different modules, and modules contain different functions. Each module contains different function that does a particular thing. So we'll be looking at different packages like CMath and math and stuff. And there are different methods of importing a package as well. So for example, in the file handling session, I for importing a package called OS. Now, when you're installing Python in your computer or in your laptop, Python does not come pre-installed with all those packages. But when you have something like an Anaconda distribution and through that you're using Python, Anaconda already has many packages, many Python packages installed in it. But even though it has all those packages installed, you'll have to import those packages in order to be able to use it. So OS was a package that came along with Anaconda. I didn't have to install it explicitly. I just had to import it before using it. Similarly, right now we'll be looking at all these different packages, and we'll see how to import those packages. So there I used a command called import OS, right? So that is one way of importing a package. And when I imported the package using the import OS command, in order to get all those functions that were there inside the package, what I had to do was I had to type OS dot, and then I pressed tab for getting all those functions in it, right? So there are different methods of importing a packages. One method is, so for example, first package that we'll be dealing today with is math and CMath. That I think is one of the most basic packages that would prove to be pretty useful to all of you. Uh, so for example, if I want to import math, how do I do that? Math is a package in Python, so I say import math. This is one way of doing it. So if I use this particular way, then I can say if I want to use whatever functions are there in the math package, then I can just say after executing this command, I will say math dot and then press tab. I'll get a list of all the functions that are there, and I can use those functions. Another function, another type of importing a package, another way of importing a package, sorry, is if I want to import all the functions that are there in the math package, right? I don't, for example, if I want to use, there is something called tan, sine, cosine, and all those things in math package. So if I just want to use the sine function without having to write math.sine, math.cos, or anything, so what I could do is, I could say from math. So from the math package, you import everything. So what I write is from math import star. So what this does is it imports all the functions that are there in the math package. So when I want to use sine, that is there in sine, or cosine, that is there in the math package, I wouldn't have to write maths.sine or maths.cos. I can directly just write sine and then sine of x or sine of y or whatever you want to write, right? So that is one thing of that is one way of doing it. But in this way, what happens is, first of all, if your package is huge, like I said, package contains a lot of functions, right? That do a particular thing for a particular function. So packages contain a lot of functions. So if we import all the functions, it will again consume memory, especially if the package is really big. Especially like packages like NumPy and Pandas that we'll see, they are really huge packages. They contain a lot of functionalities in them. So if you import every function from that package, then it will just consume a lot of memory of your Python. Another thing is that if you're using the package for the very first time, you wouldn't really know what all functions are there in the package, right? So there would be no way. So for now, I know that in the math package there is a function called sine. I know that there is a function called tan in that math package. So I could use that. But if you're using it for the first time, you wouldn't have any way of knowing what all functions are there if you use this particular method of importing the functions, right? So that, but this is another way of importing, is what I'm trying to say. Yet another way of importing is that, so for example, if I know that I'm just going to use the sine, tan, and cosine function from the math package, then I can use this. So I can just say from math import sine comma cos comma tan. So what this would do is it will just import those three functions from that math package. Okay. uh, so that is another way of importing functions from a package. So these are the three ways that we'll currently look at. And the fourth way of importing a package, that is the universally accepted way of importing packages, you could say, is that especially packages like NumPy and Pandas that we'll be looking at. So what you do is you say import math as empty. So what does this do? When I say import math as empty, and in the previous method, like I imported OS, and if I wanted to access any functions that were there in the OS, I had to write os dot tab, and then that used to give me the list of functions, right? So here, instead of writing math dot tab, I will just have to write empty dot tab. So empty dot tab, now these are this will give me a list of functions that are there. So I wouldn't have to write maths dot sine, maths dot cos. I can just write math empty dot sine, empty dot cos, right? So that will just make your codes a little bit smaller. And another reason is that, so for packages like NumPy and Pandas or Matplotlib that we'll be looking at, the universal convention of importing those packages is basically, for NumPy you will be importing it as import NumPy as NP. For Pandas you will be importing as import Pandas as PD, and for matplotlib.pyplot that we'll be looking at, that will be importing as as PLT. So these universal conventions, what does it do? So Python, all these files that you're writing in Jupyter Notebook, or just .py files, you might be wanting to share your codes to someone else, right? So especially if you're doing some research, or you're a Python developer, so you would want to share your codes to someone else, and that person might not be in the same country as you, so, or even the same place as you. So those universal conventions, what they do is that uh, all these developers, all these people who use Python as a programming language, when they use NumPy as NP, Pandas as PDs, so all of them have started using those packages, have started importing those packages like that. So whenever you see a code like np dot
Hello,
something,
ma'am.
yes,
Ma'am, will you please clear the thing that package means? I don't clear that. What is exactly mean the package
so
in Python?
packages, yeah, so packages are basically a collection of functions of that similar functions. So for example, your math package will contain different functions that you can do in mathematics. So math package will contain functions like tan, cos, sine, pi, or mathematical constants like pi, or permutations, combinations, and stuff like that. So packages are basically a collection of functions that do a similar that can be used for a similar task, for a particular task. Does that
Okay,
clear it
thank
up?
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank
So like I said, so whenever someone sees np dot something, they'll know that okay, this is from the numpy package. So that is why it's better to follow the universal conventions. So here I've imported the math package as empty. So I say, for example, if I want to convert degrees into radians, right? Or radians into degrees or something. Now for that, you know that you will require the math constant pi. And in the inbuilt, so you do not have pi's value to be an inbuilt function, or an inbuilt value in an inbuilt variable. So what you do is, in the math package, let's just look at what are the different functions that are there in the math package. So you have a cos, a sine is basically sine inverse, cos inverse, uh, tan inverse and stuff, right? And then comb is for combination, the permutation and combination one. Then you have degrees, and then you have a lot of functions. You can look at all those functions after the session is done as well. So you have many different functions. You have factorials. You can have so these particular, so infinity is for obviously infinity. You can check if a particular value is infinite using the is in function. You can check if yeah, if it's finite using the is finite function and stuff. You have log, permutation, so you have pi as well. So maths.pi, that will give you the value of the constant pi, right? So this is what you can use for if you want to find the convert degrees into radians or radians into degrees, right? So you can use that. So the first thing that we'll be looking at is, of course, converting degrees into radians. So if you have x degrees, how do you convert it into radians? Anyone?
pi
Multiply
by 180.
by, yeah.
Great. So like I showed you, you have empty dot pi. If you write it, it will give you the value of pi, right? So suppose I have 30 degrees, so I'll say x is equal to 30. For converting it into radians, you can just say x is equal to, or just say empty, so pi into x by 1. So this will give you the value in radians. And you can also define a user defined function for converting degrees to radians or radians to degrees. So that so when you have all these when you define user defined functions, that will help you, because you won't have to use pi by 180 again and again. You can just call that function and just put degrees into the parenthesis as an argument, and you can get the function as, I mean, the output as a in radians, right? So you can use user defined functions for that. You can create user defined functions for that. Similarly, for converting degrees into, sorry, radians into degrees, you can just write 180 into x by pi, right? So that math has a function, math has pi in it, so you can use pi for calculating whatever you want to. And it also has different other things like factorial. Now either you could use a user defined function, you could create a user defined function for creating a factorial. So for factorial, if you have a positive integer n, then you can just have n factorial as n into n minus 1 into n minus 2 up to into 1, right? 3 into 3 into 2 into 1. So that is your factorial, this thing, the definition of a factorial. So you could create a user defined function for factorial, or you already have a function called factorial in the math package, so you could just use that. So for example, I use empty dot, again, I don't have to write the entire function name. I can just say empty dot fac, and then I just press tab and it gives me the entire function name, right? So I just say empty dot factorial, and if I want to say calculate the factorial of 5, so if I want to say 5 factorial, it will give me the factorial, right? Similarly, if you have some word problem that you're trying to solve, like for example, if you want to calculate the probability that out of a deck of 52 cards, two cards that you sorry you basically pick out four cards, and what is the probability that you get two cards of hearts and two cards of diamonds, right? So you would be using all the permutations, permutation combination and stuff for that, right? So for that as well, you have a function for permutation, you have a function for combination. So the you know if I just write comb, so the function for combination is comb. So let us see what comb does. Again, like I said, it's a good practice to, when you're starting out with a package or starting out with a function, it's always a good practice to see what exactly that function can do. So you can just take help on that. So if I say combination, obviously the two for combination, you'll have n factorial upon n minus k factorial into k factorial, right? So you would require n and k to be the parameters. So this also tells you what those n and k are. So if you take help on that on the combination function, so it says help on built-in function comb in the module math. So here, uh, even though math is a package, this says module because the difference between packages and modules is that inside a package you can have many modules as well. So we'll be looking at an example of a module in the NumPy package. But yeah, so but Python recognizes everything as modules only. So it says the built-in function combination and module math. So it says you give two parameters, one is n and the other is k. So number of ways to choose k items from n items without repetition and without order, and it also tells you what it evaluates to. So it says n factorial upon k factorial into n minus k factorial, where when k is less than or equal to n, and evaluates to 0 when k is greater than n. And it's also known as the binomial coefficient because it is equivalent to the coefficient of the kth term in the polynomial expansion of the expression 1 plus x to the power n, right? And it also tells you when it raises different types of errors. So when does it raise type errors? So if the arguments are not integers, so you know that there are integers and there are floats in Python, right? So if the argument, and of course there are strings as well. So if the arguments are not integers, then it will raise a type error. And if the arguments are negative, then it will raise a value error. So by taking a help on a particular function, you can see so much about the function. You can see what does it do, and what are the different arguments it takes, what are the errors that it raises and stuff, right? So if I want to say 13c2, so basically from the hearts or from the diamonds, I'm choosing two cards from the diamond set. So I'm saying empty dot comb from 13, I'm choosing two cards. So there are 78 different ways of choosing that, right? So you can use this, or if you want to use permutation for something, then you can use permutation also. So again I'll be taking help on that, but the function for perm is PERM, right? So if I want to take help on PERM, again this also tells you, it evaluates to n factorial upon n minus k factorial, and when n is k is lesser than or equal to n, and it evaluates to 0 when k is greater than n. And here it says that the default value of k is none. If you see for the combination thing here, both n and k are necessary in order to use the combination function. You do not have any default value for n and k. But in the permutation function, k has a default value of none. So basically, when k is not specified, then k defaults to n, and the function returns n factorial. So basically, k defaults to actually 0. It should not be n. K defaults to 0, or yeah, sorry, k defaults to n, and the function defines returns n factorial. And it also tells you when it raises type error. So if the arguments are not integers, it raises type error and value error if the arguments are negative. So this is your permutation. So if I want empty.perm, say from 14p2, I get it as 180, right? So you can use permutation, you can use combination and stuff. Now, from math module, we'll be moving on to the CMath module. So CMath module basically actually is complex math module. So you have complex numbers in mathematics, right? So one of the reasons why you would want to use CMath module over the math module is because CMath module basically contains all the functions that math module contains, but it also deals with complex numbers. So if I in the math module, you have square root also, as well, if you would have noticed it. So you have square root, and if I say a negative value over here, it gives me a math domain error, because math module deals only with the real numbers. But if I used the CMath module, then I could have done the so if I just import CMath module, so I say import CMath as CM, for example, right? Starting a few cells here. So I'm importing the CMath module, and if I say CM dot square root, again this also has square root in it, so SQRT, and I say minus in it. So this tells me that the square root of -8 is 2.828 J. So in Python, when you're dealing with complex numbers, when you say x is equal to 2 plus 3j or 2 plus 3i, Python recognizes that you are talking about a complex number. So here, the complex math module would be dealing with the negative values as well. So square root of negative, cube root of negative, and all that stuff. So CMath module is great in that sense. And with even when you have a variable like x is equal to, say, x is equal to 2 plus 3j, right? So here, if I just display x, this considers x to be a complex variable. Okay, so if I want to do some function with x, so if I say conjugate of it, so I'll get 2 minus 3j and stuff. So here, for example, here I say I got this as the square root of -8 as this thing, right? So if I had,
Hello, ma'am.
yeah.
Ma'am, what is conjugate?
Okay, so basically, when you have a complex number, the conjugate of the complex number is basically, so if you have a complex number like 2 plus 3j, Now the 3j is basically the 3 is the imaginary part and 2 is the real part, right?
Yeah.
So the conjugate of a complex number, 2 plus 3j, would be 2 minus 3j. So what?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, get it. Thank you.
So the sign of the imaginary function, so the imaginary part of the number, that gets changed. That's basically the so in very simple terms, that is what the conjugate is. So if you have 2 minus 3j as a number, then the conjugate of this, the complex conjugate of it, would be 2 plus 3j. So basically just changing the imaginary part. Yeah. So you can deal with the complex part with the CMath package. So for example, one use case of that would be when you're solving a quadratic equation like ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. You know that the solution x would be minus b plus minus root of b square minus 4ac upon 2a, right? So the sign of b square minus 4ac would basically, so the entire value b square minus 4ac would decide whether you have equal and real roots or unequal and real roots, or you have complex roots. Because if b square minus 4ac becomes negative, then that would mean that you will have inside the square root you will have a negative number, so which means that you will have a complex solution, right? So so you call b square minus 4ac as the discriminant. So if your discriminant is negative, then you will have complex roots. If your discriminant is 0, then you will have equal and real roots. And if your discriminant is positive, then you'll have real and unequal roots. So when you're creating a user defined function for that, if you had just used square root from the math module, then if your discriminant had been negative, then that would have raised this math domain error, right? So instead of that, if you had used the square root function from the CMath module, then that would deal with the discriminant being negative as well. So that is one of the uses of using CMath over math module, right? So that's the basic module that you could start with when you're starting in Python and you want to solve some math problem, and you could use the math and CMath packages for that. uh that brings me to the next package, that is the NumPy package. NumPy package is basically a much more advanced version of the math module or the math package. So whatever the math package can do, NumPy basically stands for numerical Python. So numerical Python, it's used as the basics. It actually is the fundamental package of scientific programming, you could say that. So it has several functions. It has some amazing things that you could do with NumPy. So have you dealt with matrix before in your course till now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So till now you have used lists and stuff, right? So I'll first start with the NumPy package. So now, like I said, the universal convention of importing NumPy is basically import NumPy as NP. So suppose you have a list of temperatures in degrees Celsius and you want to convert that in Fahrenheit, okay, into Fahrenheit. So the formula, so let's just take the list as TC is equal to say 29.8, 26.5, then 32.7, 40.3. So let's just take this as the list of temperatures that I have in degrees Celsius, okay? And I want to convert this into Fahrenheit. So the basically, if I have anything in degrees Celsius, to convert that into Fahrenheit, so if I have x degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit, it would be 9 by 5x plus 32. So I'll write it out here. So x degrees Celsius I'm using the markdown feature here. So this will, with the markdown feature, you can type out equations in Jupyter Notebook. So X degree Celsius would basically imply, I use fraction 9/5 x plus 32. I close this. So X degree Celsius, sorry, I wrote C here, it should be X. So X degree Celsius in Fahrenheit, it would be 9/5 x plus 32. So if you want to convert all of these into Fahrenheit, then what would you have to do? You'll have to multiply each element by 9/5, and you would have to add 32 to each of those elements, right? In order to get all those elements in Fahrenheit. Now, the thing is, in lists, if I have a list L as say 2, 3, and if I have another list called M, which is 4, 5. Now, if I say L plus M, can anyone tell me what happens?
It will add a 2 plus 4 and 3 plus 5.
That would what you would expect it to do, but in lists in Python, what happens is when you add,
Concatenation.
yeah, exactly. So you have L, so the elements of the M list, they will be appended to the end of the list L. So what happens in Python with lists is something called concatenation. So if you have L as 2, 3 and M as 4, 5, adding L and M will actually give you a list which is 2, 3, 4, 5. So you cannot really do mathematical operations in lists like this. You can't add two lists and get element wise addition and stuff. So what you would have to do for that is something called list comprehension. So if you want to multiply each of the elements of the list TC by 9/5 and then add 32 to it, what you could do is, I'm defining another list called TF. So TF is again going to be another list. The list that I will get with TF is, I'll say 9 into TC. So if I want to access something from the list L, right? So if I want to access the first element of L, like like everything else in Python, the counting starts from 0, like I said. So if I want to access the first element, I'll have to say L of 0, right? So that will give me the first element of the list. So if I say 9 into TC of I divided by 5 plus 32 for I in range length of TC. So what this does is, first of all, let me see what is the length of TC. So when I say range length of TC, basically it will start counting from 0 and go till the penultimate number. That is, so if I have the range of, if I have the length 4, then it starts counting from 0 and goes to 3. So for I in range 0 to 0, 1, 2, 3, it will take every element of TC. So TC of 0, TC of 1, TC2, TC3. It will multiply it by 9, divide it by 5, and then add 32 to it. So once I do this, and then I see what TF is. So here I get a list of all the temperatures in Fahrenheit, right? So this is what you would do if you were working with lists. But wouldn't it be easier if you could just say, if I want temperatures in Fahrenheit, I had a list TC. So if I could just say 9 into TC by 5 plus 32, and I got a list, wouldn't that be amazing, right? So there is something called arrays in NumPy. So let's look at that. So I've already imported NumPy, I believe. Yeah, I've imported NumPy. So if I say tc new is equal to np.array, so basically the arrays in the NumPy can be used for mathematical operations, and not only that, arrays are you when you use arrays, the time it takes for you to execute the code, that is really I mean, it's honestly very less as compared to lists, and it also consumes lesser memory as compared to lists. So the arrays in NumPy are something that many people use when you talk about scientific programming. So you use np.array, and how you use it is inside the np.array function, you can just input this list. Okay, and then let me also see what my tc new looks like. So instead of a list, I now have an array. Okay, now let me, like I said, it would be so great if I could just do 9 into this array divided by 5 plus 32, and I could get the function, get the output, right? So let's try that out. 9 into tc new. Again, I don't have to write the entire thing. I can just write t underscore c and press tab, then enter, divided by 5 plus 32. See, it's as easy as that. So you don't have to write the entire list comprehension. You don't have to write 9 into tc of I by 5 plus 32, etc. So with array, you can do any sort of mathematical operations that you could think of. So what this basically does is, when I say 9 into tc new, it multiplies 9 to every element of that array. So it multiplies 9 into 29.8, 9 into 26.5, etc. Then it divides each of these elements by 5. And then when you add 32, the number 32 gets added to each of the elements of that array. That is exactly what we wanted, and what we wanted a list to do, right? So with the NumPy array, things become so much more easy and quick. So that is one of the uses of NumPy array. Now, you said that you worked with matrices, so you would have worked with vectors as well, as I believe.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So suppose if I have, now you know that a vector could be in any dimension, right? So you could have a 2D vector, 3D vector, or in any n-dimensional vector you could have. So suppose I have two vectors u and v. Okay. So I and one thing to note is that in lists you could, so if I have L to be a list, I could save some strings. So say I say hello, and then I could save numbers. I could save integers. I could save floats. All of them I could save in the same list. But in NumPy array, so the strings list, I mean strings, integers, floats, etc., these are different data types, right? So in lists you could have different data types within the same list, but in the NumPy array you can have only one sort of so NumPy array, you call NumPy array to be homogeneous. So why homogeneous? Because you can deal with only one data type at a particular point. So if I say 1 comma 2 comma 3 as the input of an NumPy array, so you'd say that the array is of integer data type. So instead of that, if I say 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, that would mean that the array is of float data type. So it is also possible for you to specify what type of data type you want. So here, if I say 1 comma 2 comma 3, and then I say d, so you have another argument here that you could put inside the NumPy array. So I say data type is equal to float. And now if I say u, so here, like you can see, even though I entered integers 1 comma 2 comma 3, but I specified that I wanted the data type to be float, right? Now it's if you want to do mathematical operations, it's better to have a float data type, because like I said, you can have only so if you have integer data type for you, then all the entries must be integer and all the operations would also be an integer operation. But if you want to multiply, divide, etc., then you want to have float, right? So it would work better with the float data type. So it's always better to define the data type as float if you want to use mathematical operations on it. So suppose my first vector is view, that is 1 comma 2 comma 3. It's a 3D vector. Again, I define another vector v to be, so the way you use you define a vector is np dot array. Inside the parenthesis you write a list of whatever vector you want, of whatever length of vector you want. So here I'll again say minus minus 2 comma 3 comma say minus 4. Yeah, and again I'll use the data type, or if I don't want to press data d type is equal to 4, what I could do is minus 2 dot minus 3 dot minus 4 dot. So when I add this dot at the end of an integer, it basically means that this is a float that I'm talking about. So you don't have to write minus 2.0, 3.0 and stuff. You can just write minus 2 dot, 3 dot and minus 4 dot. That would, Python would recognize that as a float variable. So you have v over here. So you can see that u is this thing, v is this vector. Now, what are the different vector operations that you could do with two vectors?
Addition, subtraction, dot product, cross product.
Yes. So addition. So if you want to add two vectors, you can say u plus v. The two vectors get added. Unlike lists where when you said L plus M, that was just getting concatenated. Here you can add two vectors and you'll get u plus v as the element wise addition. U minus v, sorry, u minus v as element wise subtraction. If you say u into v, basically what it does is it does element wise multiplication. So you have u here and v here, right? So 1 into minus 2, 2 into 3, 3 into minus 4. That is, so u into v gives you an element wise multiplication. If you want dot product, so when you have a list, right? So L is equal to list. So L has some attributes to it, right? So you can use the so if you said if you have L as a list, and if you say L dot and press tab, you see different things like L dot pop or L dot append and stuff, right? So those are different attributes that a list has. So what the different things that you could do to L, right? So similarly, for arrays also, arrays have different attributes to them. There are different things that you could do. So when you define u to be an array, there are different things that you could do to the array u. So for accessing all those attributes, you can just write u dot and then press tab. So you will have all these things. You can get the so all is basically, it tells if a particular condition is true for all the elements in a particular in an array. We'll be looking at that when we come to matrices. So all is for that. Argmin, argmax. So what is the maximum argument? What is the minimum argument? What is the arg? So yeah, so you have different other things like, so again, when I spoke about complex numbers, I spoke about conjugates, right? So here also you have something called conjugate. You have a lot of different things. So you also have a feature called dot. So when you say u dot, so let's just take help on that. So here, not only does it say what numpy dot does, but it also gives you example of it. So we'll be looking at np.i and np.1s also in just a bit. But basically, when I say a dot b, or so here a is an array, b is also is a type of array. So when I say a dot b, it says I want a dot product of a and b, right? So you have an inbuilt, so you can use u dot for that. So I can say Either I could do this u dot dot v. So this would give me the dot product of vector u and vector v. And another thing that you could do is np dot dot. So you have a function called dot using the you're basically using the numpy package only right now, but you also have a function called dot in the numpy package, so you can use that, and you can give u and v as the arguments. You'll get the same answer. So like you said, you could also have cross products of two vectors. So you can use np dot cross. For that you have a function called cross. And when you're just exploring, right, so when you're exploring numpy for the first time, so like I asked you a question, that what are the different things that you could probably do with a vector, and the things that came to your mind was dot product and cross product. So numpy can do a lot of mathematical things. So when dot product and cross products come to your mind, so you can just write np dot dot or np dot do and then press tab and see if that function is actually there in NumPy, and then take help on it. See what are the different things that you can do with that function if it exists, and what are the different arguments that you're supposed to give, and what if it. So for packages like this, the functions that are created, many functions come up when you take help on those functions. Many functions come with help where you have examples like the ones in this thing. When we saw the math and cmath packages, there weren't you didn't see any function which had examples in it, right? But this package is so widely used that you actually have examples of how to use those functions as well. So it's always a good practice to just write a function and then take help on it and see what that help gives you. So you could do np dot cross u comma v, and this is the cross. Now if you were to do it manually, then it would take you a little bit of time, right? But this gives you in no time at all. So you could just use, and if you want to take dot product or cross product of two vectors or something, then you could do this. So if you want to find the area of a parallelogram and stuff, so you have topics like scalar triple product, vector triple product and stuff. So all that stuff you can do using Python in just a jiffy. Like you can do it within seconds. You just need to know how to do it, that's all. So you could do projections of a vector b onto vector a as well. So I don't think we have a lot of time, which is why I'm just leaving this. We'll go to the matrix because we'll be looking at how to plot also. Plotting is something fun in Python that you could do. So before going into the plotting part, so you're all familiar with matrix, right? So like I said, right now we just defined two vectors u and v, and we saw different things that you could do with a vector, the dot product and the cross product and stuff. Using NumPy, it's also possible for you to define a matrix. And in fact, the array, the np.array function that you saw, you can create n-dimensional arrays. So after matrices, you have when it goes into 3D and ND and stuff, you have something called tensors that come into play, right? So you can define ND arrays inside using the numpy.array. So numpy.array function is an amazing function that lets to do so many different things. So right now we'll just talk about matrix and what are the different types of things that you could do with a matrix. So how do you define a matrix in NumPy? So basically, matrix can be thought of as a 2D array. Okay, so you can just think of matrix to be an array inside an array. So how do you define it? So if I want a matrix, so I say A is equal to np.array, right? So how did we define vectors? Inside the parenthesis, we had one square bracket. Inside the square bracket, we wrote 1 minus 1 and all those things. So that gave you a 1D array. For a 2D array, what you have is inside the parenthesis. So like I said, it's an array inside an array. So, or you could look at it as a list of lists, right? Inside, you could probably have the same analogy. So it's basically inside one square bracket, you'll have another square bracket. So if I want to create a 3 cross 3 matrix, right? So I could do 1, comma 2, comma 3. So this is my first row. My second row would be 3, comma 2, comma minus 1. And the third row, suppose it's 5, comma minus 4, comma 8. Now, when you're defining a matrix, or like a 3 cross 3 matrix or an n cross n matrix, it might become a little cumbersome to write 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot, etc. So in that case, using the D type makes sense. So you can just say D type float. So if I had just written this in like without the float, and if I say A, so this is basically a matrix. Okay, so this is an array of so this is a 2D array, you could say. So this is how you define a matrix. So the first row of the matrix is 1 2 3, the second row is 3 2 minus 1, and the third row is 5 minus 4 and 8. Now this is an integer matrix because all the elements in this are integer. But if you want to convert this into a float, so you can add that. And now you can see that this is a float matrix. So you can use different operations on matrix. So when you talk about matrix, just one matrix, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Like, what can I do with one matrix?
Determinant.
Great. So determinant, or you could take the transpose of a matrix, or you could use the inverse of a matrix, right? So let's see what are the different things that you could do with this. So again, these are the different things that you can, the same thing like you had with array, you can have it with this also. So if I say, first, we'll first look at, transpose. So it's very simple. You just have to write A dot capital T. That's all. You'll get the transpose of it. You see that this is the transpose of the matrix. Now, for things like determinant and inverse and stuff, so like I was one of you asked me what's a package, right? So I said that it's a collection of functions that do a particular thing. Now there is a little difference between package and a module. So module is basically a file, a Python file, which contains a lot of functions that do a particular thing. And package is a collection of modules. So you can either have just one module in it, or you can have multiple modules in it as well. Now NumPy is such a huge package with so many functionalities that there is a separate module called linalg in NumPy, which is used for performing linear algebra operations in it. So let's look at that. np.linalg. So if you just say np.lin, we'll look at linspace also, but we'll first look at np.linalg. Now, like I said, linalg is a module inside the NumPy package. So inside the modules, you'll have different functions. So you do np.linalg and then you press dot tab again. So you'll have different things that you can see. So here, like you said, I want a determinant of a matrix. That's possible with the det function. You have eigenvalues, you have inverse, you have matrix power, matrix norm, then you have norm, and you have a concept called generalized inverse. So when you have matrices which are not invertible, you have something called generalized inverse for that. So that you have it here. Then you have different things like QR transformation or Cholesky transformation and stuff. So those are all linear algebra concepts. I think you have a session on linear algebra also. Probably you'll find some things there. So
Excuse me.
yeah.
What if like all these are inbuilt functions? So what if we want to see the code for that function?
Great question. So the Python is basically an open source language. What that means is that anyone and everyone is allowed to do is allowed to develop something and add to Python, right? So the codes that the developers have written, you can actually go to just Google search NumPy and stuff. So functions, NumPy functions and stuff. So you'll have a documentation where they talk about what are the different functions that are present in NumPy and what exactly goes into that function, and you can actually also see the code that goes into. So you have documentations, you have official documentations of all these packages online, so you can just go access them and you can just see what exactly they are doing. I'll just let you know, I'm not too sure which package that is, but but you can do it.
Okay, ma'am.
So with the so if I want right now, if I just want to get the determinant of a matrix, so I can, inside the linear package there is a function called determinant or det. Again, so if I didn't know that it's if it's just det, I could have just written det and then press tab. I would have got to know that it's det and not full determinant, right? So this, if I just calculate for this, I get the determinant of this. Now you can see that it's like 0 0 0 0 and then at the end it's 6, right? So NumPy calculates everything numerically, so you do not get an exact result. You'll have algorithms that approximate all those things, so you get a very precise answer for whatever you ask it to. So like you have linear dot determinant, you have inverse also. You could get the inverse of a matrix as well. So the linear package, the linear module inside the NumPy package does a lot of different things there are a lot of different things that you could do with the linear package. Similarly, now when we talk about matrices, we associate matrix with an identity matrix also, right? So you do not actually have to, if you want an n cross n identity matrix, you don't actually have to write an entire array with 1000 or 0100 and all that stuff. You have so you have something called np.eye, and let's take help on that. So np.eye returns a 2D array with ones on the diagonal and zeros elsewhere. So basically it returns an identity matrix. So here you can just tell what is your n cross. So if I want an n cross n identity matrix, right? So here obviously you will have a square matrix in mind when you're telling about identity matrix, right? So it's okay if you just write np.I and then in brackets, if I just give 3 instead of 3 comma 3, Python would understand that this is a 3 cross 3 identity matrix that I'm talking about. So which is why the second argument is optional. So by default the second value is none. So it tells you that these are the parameters that go into the function and what is it that it returns, and it also gives you some examples of it. So you can just take help on all these things, all these functions that you're using, and you'll get to see a lot of different use cases there. And you'll get to know what are the parameters that you could probably use in this function. So np.I basically gives you this thing. It gives you an identity matrix. Similarly, if I want a zero matrix, you can have a zero matrix as well, with you have a function called zeros. So let's take a help on that. So here it says zeros, and then you have to say shape. You'll have to give the shape. So you could either get an m cross n zero matrix or an n cross n zero matrix. So either a rectangular matrix or a square matrix. So you could and the shape that you're giving, that has to be a tuple. So if I want a 3 cross 3 zero matrix, then inside the brackets I'll give another tuple which says 3 comma 3, and the default data type here is float. So like I said, the arrays in NumPy they are homogeneous. So either they are all integers, uh, they are all integers or they are all floats, right? So the default data type over here is a float data type. So this tells you what are the parameters and then what are the different examples. So if I just say np dot zeros, it will give me a 5x1 array, right? And I can also specify the data type. If I want it to be an integer, then I say d type is equal to int. But if I want a 2x1 array or a 2x2 array, right? So if I want a 2x2 matrix, then I can just say np dot zeros, and inside the parenthesis I can give a tuple like 2x2, 2, 2. So that will give me a 2x2 0 matrix. And I can also have a ones matrix. So like I'll just type this. So zeros, 2, 2. This will give me a 2x2 matrix of all zeros. I can also have ones. So these are all great when you're writing an algorithm where you want to start with a zero matrix and then you want to replace those elements with something, right? So that like you start with an empty list before while going into the for loop, right? So you start with an empty list and then keep appending something to the list. Similarly, when you're working with a matrix and stuff, you could either start with an empty array, or you could start with if you already know that I'm going to have this n cross n matrix as a result. So you could start with a zero matrix and then start doing whatever whatever function you want to do, and then you can get the n cross n matrix as the output. So either you could use a zero matrix for that, or ones is similar to zeros, just that instead of all zeros you'll get all ones. And also this one's data type is also float by default. So if I say 2, 2, you see that you'll get a 2x2 matrix of all ones. And if for some reason you want a matrix of all fives or all sixes or whatever, so you have another, yeah, so you have another function called full. So let us take help on full. So here it says shape, fill value, here data type is none. Okay, so here again you give the shape. So I want a matrix, a 2x2 matrix with all twos or all threes or something, right? So here I can just write np dot full and then 2, 2, and then fill value scalar. So basically it tells what value you want to fill the matrix with. And date type, you could either say either integer or float or whatever, right? And you'll get an nd array. So if I say so if I want to have a matrix with all elements to be infinity, like you had infinity in the math package, numpy also has infinity. So np.inf gives you something that is equivalent to infinity. So np.full 2, 2 and np.inf, that will give you a 2x2 matrix with all the elements to be infinity. And similarly, if you want all the elements to be 10, then you could just do 10 np.full 2, 2 and then 10, right? So and you could use the fill function for that. So I'll just use the full this thing for again 2x2 matrix, and then like they're done np.inf. So I'll get a matrix where all the elements are in, right? Now here, for example, so we already looked at linalg, right? Now if I want to solve a system of linear equations, so I have the linear equations to be 10x minus 3y plus 4z is 8, minus 3x plus 13y minus 21z is equal to 40, 5x plus 3y plus 18z is equal to minus 7. This is the system of linear equation that I want to solve. Now obviously there are different methods that you could use for solving this, but if I just the very basic method that I learned if of solving a system of linear equations is that I could I could treat this system to be a system of like if I could treat the system to be matrices, okay, so I could have a coefficient matrix which is basically 10 minus 3 4 minus 3 13 minus 21 5 3 and 18. That is my coefficient matrix A. And if I multiply x y z, that's one vector that I have, 3 cross 1 vector that I have. Uh, if I multiply that 3 cross 1 vector with this 3 cross 3 matrix, then I'll get the get B vector on the right hand side, which is 8, 14, and minus 7, right? So I can write this entire system of linear equations as Ax is equal to B. So here my A matrix is what I told you, 10 minus 3, 4, minus 3, 13, minus 21, 5, 3, 18. So that is my A matrix. The X matrix is X matrix, or you could call it as a vector. That's so it's 3 X, Y, Z. That is my X vector. And my B vector is basically 8, 14, and minus 7. So if I want to find X, Y, and Z, what I could do is just A inverse of B would give me the value of X, Y, and Z, right? So that is how I would usually solve. Now, obviously, the complexity would vary depending upon how big the matrix is and all these things. And it would be X is equal to A inverse B if the inverse of A exists, right? So if I for now, let us just first look at the inverse of a matrix and see if the inverse of A exists. So I say A is equal to np dot array. So what did I tell you? So it will be a list of lists. So it will be 10 minus 3. And here again, like in the normal list, having extra spaces when you're writing the numbers, it doesn't really matter. So that doesn't get counted as a number or a character or whatever. So you can have spaces in between to increase the readability of your codes. So otherwise it will just become a little bit of hodgepodge. So you can just have 10 minus 3 4 and then comma. The next row is minus 3 13 minus 21. The next one is 5 3 and minus 18, right? And I specify that the data type I want is float. So let's see A.
Plus 18.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So this is the coefficient matrix that I get. Let's first see if it's invertible. So I'll say A dot. So I have np dot linear, right? So you have something called inverse in this. So you can use np dot linear dot inverse of A. You see that this is invertible and you get this array, right? So this is the inverse of A. Now, since we have already got the inverse of A, you could either just multiply A with B, or so I'll also tell you how to do matrix multiplication. So here my B is another array, which is 8, 14, and minus 7, right? So 8, 14, minus 7. And again, the data type that I want is float. So this is my B vector. Oh, I'm so sorry. np dot array. So this is my B vector. The way you do matrix multiplication so with NumPy, the way you do matrix multiplication is this. So A in is equal to, I just have A in as a variable that is the inverse of A, and I have B as another array. So you know that you could multiply 3 cross 3 into 3 cross 1, right? So what you could do is, or if you have another matrix, or suppose I want to multiply A inverse and A, right? So you know that I should be getting an identity matrix, right? So if I try to multiply A inverse into A, the way you multiply two matrices in NumPy is you have, so you could either use the dot product. So the dot product basically gives you a matrix multiplication, because A star B, if you have two matrices A and B, A star B, if you try to do so, or A inverse into A, if you try to do this, is actually element wise multiplication. So it will multiply. If I'll just display A inverse also over here. So it will multiply 10 with this, minus 3 with this, and 4 with this and stuff. So this is basically element wise multiplication. The matrix multiplication can be done using the @ symbol. So you can say A in at A. So now, like I said, this is a numerical, so NumPy is basically a numerical Python, right? So when you do, 10 into this thing, so when I mean the A into A inverse, so when you're multiplying this, when you're doing it manually, you'll probably not write these as fractions. You'll be writing it as decimals. You'll be writing them as fractions, and then you could probably cancel them out, and then finally you get 1000010 and 001. But this, what it does is, what Python does is, it does everything numerically, and the number of digits that it takes into consideration also matter. So instead of getting just 1000010 and 001, you actually get a matrix of float type. And instead of 0, you will get something to the power of minus a very huge power. So here you can see that 4.1633 into E minus 17 is basically, it means 10 to the power minus 17. So that you could consider to be 0, right? So and here also you see 1.000 E00. So that basically means 1. So 1, 1, 1, and all the other things are to the power minus a very huge power, right? So those are basically, you could consider them to be 0. So what I'm trying to say is that you won't get exact 0. You'll get something very, very, very close to 0, because it does everything numerically and it approximates a lot. So that's why you get, you don't get the exact value. You don't get exact 0. But this is another matrix identity that you could have checked out, right? So A inverse A should be equal to A inverse, which is equal to the identity matrix. So coming back to solving a linear equation, system of linear equations, so you could either do A inverse B, or in linalg. So I go to linalg here dot. So you have a function called solve. So let me just take help on that. So it tells you that it solves a linear matrix equation or a system of linear scalar equations, and it computes the exact solutions. So of course, so if A is the coefficient matrix and B is the right hand side vector, then it returns the X, which is what we want. And it also tells you when it raises a linalg error. So basically, when you solve a system of linear equations as A inverse B, you add a condition that if the inverse of A exists, then it is A inverse B, right? So so this raises an linalg error if A is singular or not square. And it has some, so if you want to, like someone was asking, can I see how the function is and stuff? So here it says see the numpy.linalg documentation for details. So basically that documentation contains everything that goes into the numpy.linalg and what all different things are there, what are the different codes and stuff. So you have something called GitHub, right? So usually you'll have GitHub repositories of all these developers who have written all those codes, and you can check out all those codes on their GitHub repositories. So here it also gives you some examples of how you could do that. So here it says that if I want to solve a system of equations like this, then I'll use this, right? So I can use linalg.solve here. I've seen that the inverse exists, so I can use linalg.solve here. I think it's already 1:30. So since we started the session at 12:15 or something, we'll go on till some 1:40 or something. Is that okay with you guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So this is, I can just say np.linear.solve a comma b, and this gives me the solution. So I don't have to write everything manually. So I could just do this. And since it was just a 3x3 matrix, but even if you had a say 10x10 matrix, it wouldn't take a lot of time. Like it's the array, because at the end it's actually solving and solving something using the numpy array only, right? So the numpy arrays, the time that it takes to solve numpy arrays is very quick, so actually very less. So it you can solve a lot of linear equations, system of linear equations using the np.linear.solve. You can check out all the other functions that are there in numpy. I'll just go to one more function, that is range, arange, and linspace. Now, when you're using for loop, you usually write for I in range something, right? So what does the if you just look at range as a function, so if I say list range, I say 10. Okay. So I see that it gives me back a list starting from 0 till 9, right? So it when I say range 10, it goes up to the penultimate number, so that is why I get a list from 0 to 9, but everything is an integer. I cannot have, so for example, if I say 11.5, I let me just see what happens when I rate range of 11.5. So it throws me an error, right? It tells me that float object cannot be interpreted as an integer. So with list, you can only have a list. With the range function, you can only have a list of integers. You cannot have a range cannot take float objects. But with when we are solving, so when we are dealing with mathematics, uh, we actually come across more of floats and decimals than just normal integers, right? So we need something that gives us, so if I could have some function that gives me back a list that, so if, for example, just as an example, if I want to plot the sine graph, right? And for the sine graph, I want, so for the sine graph, I would require like sine from 0 to 2 pi. I would require a lot of values so that I could plot a proper sine graph, right? So here I would, I can't just have, now for example, first of all, pi itself is not an integer. So if I want from 0 to pi, I want some 10, 15 numbers. With the range function, I cannot use it because pi itself is not an integer. But I would require some function which would give me, and it's not really it's not really nice to just have a like for loop running where you could just multiply some pi by pi by 2, pi by 3, pi by 4, etc., so that you could get some linearly spaced numbers. But if I had a function which could give me some 10, 15 numbers between two non-integer numbers, right? So that would be so good. So NumPy, like many other functionalities it has two different functions that could give you a possible solution for this. So one is linspace. So let us take help on linspace. np.linspace. So I don't need to write the whole function, just lins and then tab. So this thing. So linspace tells you that the first of all the parameters, or let's see what linspace does. So it has start, stop, numbers. So how many numbers do you want? Endpoint is equal to true. So do you want to consider the endpoint? So if I want from 0 to 2 pi, do I want to consider 2 pi or do I not want to consider 2 pi? And by default the endpoint is true. So by default, if I say 0 to 2 pi, it will consider 2 pi as well. And then data type, or yeah, so it also considers the data type and stuff as a parameter. So what does it return? It returns evenly spaced numbers over a specified interval. So if I say np.linspace, numpy.linspace and 0 to 2 pi, then and then I say comma 50, that is number is equal to 50. So you can see that the default number is actually 50. So if I just say np.linspace comma np.linspace 0 comma 2 pi, it will give me 50 linearly spaced points between 0 and 2 pi, 0 and 2 pi included, right? So it also tells you what these parameters are and how you and what does it return and what are the different examples here. So here you see that by saying 2.0 and 3.0, you're actually specifying the data type over here. So I say that between 2 and 3, I want 5 numbers. So you have 2, 2.25, 2.5, 2.75, and 3. So including 2 and 3, I get 5 linearly spaced numbers. That's so great, right? So similarly, you'll have, so let me just start with linspace. So I say np.linspace. Like we had in the maths module, we had pi, right? So here, numpy also has pi in that. So numpy also has pi. So if I want 100 linearly spaced numbers between 0 and 2 pi, what I could do is np.linspace 0 comma 2 into np.pi. And I want 100 numbers, right? So I say number is equal to 5. And it's not necessary that I write number is equal to 100, because the third parameter, like you see over here, is number. So it's not really necessary that I write number, but I'm just specifying that yes, I want numbers to be 100. So I say 0 comma 2 pi, I want 100 linearly spaced numbers. Now because so it will give me the entire array. So you have 100 numbers between 0 and 2 pi. So that's a great way of using a function that returns floats as well between between a start point and an end point. So that is one function. The other function that we have is basically a range. So let me just see what a range is. Let me take help on a range. np dot a range. So here, this also is like linspace, but the only difference is that here in the linspace, you say between 0 and 2 pi, I want these many numbers. But in a range, I say that between 0 and 2 pi, I want these many, whatever number of elements I get, they should have a space of say 0.01 between them. So if my first number is 0, then the second number would be 0.01 and the third number would be 0.02, etc., up to 2 pi, and 2 pi is not included in that, right? So the in a range you can't include the end point. So here it says return evenly spaced values within a given interval. So you could either say start, stop. So you say start, stop, and the step size in this. Instead of specifying the number of elements you want, you actually tell what the step size you want it to have. So let me just try it out here. np.arange from 0 to 10. I want step to be equal to 2. So you see that it starts from 0, but it does not go till 10. It goes up to the number before that. So the endpoint is never, added in the or rather considered in the arange function. So that's one of the key differences between linspace and arange. In linspace, you specify the number of points that you want, and you have an option of including the endpoint. But in arange, you specify the step size, and you do not have an option of including the endpoint. So that's two different functions, but both of these functions can deal with floats. So suppose if I say 0.01. So these are float numbers, right? So it can deal with floats as well. It's not necessary that it deals with just just integers. So arange and linspace are great functions that you could use. That brings me to the matplotlib package. So I think after the matplotlib package, we would probably have to stop. So the matplotlib package is basically used for plotting in Python. And within so like I said, packages contains different modules. Like you saw that linalg was a module inside the NumPy package, right? So similarly, the most commonly used package, most commonly used module from the matplotlib package is something called pyplot. And the universal convention of writing it is importing it is import matplotlib dot pyplot as plt. So here I'm not importing the entire matplotlib package. I'm just importing the pyplot module from the matplotlib package. So I'm just importing this. So suppose, like I said, that if I want to plot a sine graph, okay, so how do I plot it? Now I would need, for plotting, I would need something in the x-axis and something in the y-axis, right? So using range would not do the, I mean, would not be that good, because you cannot have floats in them, and I want from 0 to 2 pi. So I could use np.linspace for that. So I could say np.linspace, and then I say 0, 2 into np.pi, and I want, say, 100 points, right? So this could be on the x-axis, and my y-axis could have sine t as the function, right? Now np numpy also, like I said, it is just it's an advanced version of the math package. So whatever functions you find in the math package, you can find in the numpy package also as well. Just that numpy cannot deal with complex numbers, so you will have to use the cmath package for that. So I can see np dot sine, so that I can have this, sorry, and enter. So I can have y is equal to np dot sine. And the best part about this is that I could use the sine function on an array, and I can get an array of, so for each of the points inside the t array, I would get sine of t, So if I want to check what y is, see, so the between 0 and 2 pi, you have 100 numbers, right? And when I say sine of t, I get 100 numbers. So this is sine 0, sine, so we had done 0 to 2 pi here, right? So here you can have, this is sine of 0, sine of 0 0.0634 and stuff. So you get element wise sine operation is performed over here. Now if I want to plot the sine sine function, so I can just call the plt.plot. So you will have to write the x and y axis, right? So I'll say in the x axis I want t, and in the y axis I want y, right? And there is something called plt.show. It shows you the graph. Here you have it. So this plots the sine function from 0 to 2 pi. And you can also add, so you can specify the x limit, you can specify the y limit. By default, it automatically, looking at the x and y values, this is intelligent enough to know what kind of limits it should take for the x and y axis, so it automatically determines it on its own. But if you want to specify the limits for the x and y axis, you could do that. Then you can add labels on x and y axis. You could add the name for the plot. So if I want to say that the name of the plot is sine plot or something, so you could add a name for that. And if you have multiple plots over here, then you could have that as well. So for example, here I had sine, right? So if I wanted cos also, so if I wanted y1, is equal to np.cos of t. And I say, along with this, I want to plot the cos function also. Plot t comma y1. And I specify that I want it in red color and I want it to be dashed lines, right? So if I just do this, I can have two different plots in the same thing. And if I could have legends also with this, so I could just say label is equal to sign. This is cos, cosine. Cosine. And I can just call the legend function here. So here, and this automatically determines which is the best place to get the legend printed, because had it printed over here, this portion of the graph would have gone missing, right? So here it automatically determines that left hand side's, the left hand side corner is the best part where you could display the legend. So it automatically determines that, and it says that this is the sine wave and this is the cosine wave. So there are different functions that you could do with matplotlib also. So that brings us to the end of the packages session. Any doubts, anyone? Yes, anyone have any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No,
So
ma'am.
I'll just share the feedback form for this session also. And I just want to genuinely know how the two sessions were. Did you like it? Did you want something more from that? Or was the pace okay?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Uh, we have a brief and informative lecture about file handling, package, and modules in a simple language. Your session was very much useful and interesting. So thank you, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time with us. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. I had a really good time because all of you were answering as well, and it was really nice. So thank you so much for inviting me.